Welcome to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy is a veteran U.S. Navy SEAL, a former protective officer for the CIA Global Response Staff, founder and CEO of the Able Shepherd Program, a husband and father of 4, and a personal friend of mine. Now here's Jimmy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Protector Culture Podcast with Jimmy Graham. I'm your host, Jimmy Graham. This episode is brought to you by Able Nation. That's able-nation.org. I want to tell you what that is. In the Able Shepherd program, we started going out to churches and schools and providing security training, consultations. We would build security teams and we would do a lot of advising. We would run into churches and schools that did not have a budget at all for security, so we started paying for it out of pocket. Little things here and there, crash bars, cameras, things like that. Neil Pinkham and myself started this as a 501c3 because we asked the community to help us in this endeavor, and they answered in a big way. So we've done motorcycle rides, we've done galas, dinners, like all of these things to raise funds and pay for what do they call them? Scholarships for security teams, for material goods like trauma kits, med kits, and even body armor for principals. So that's what Able Nation is. If you have a security team in a church or a school specifically, there's others as well, civic groups, please contact Neil Pinkham at able-nation.org. All right, part 2 of my Out-of-Towners podcast. Joining us today again is Nick Higgins, Able Shepherd 075. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good morning. We mix it up so they think it was 2 separate days like we talked about. Jason Cambell, Able Shepherd 086. How you doing, my brother?
I am well.
Okay, when we signed off.
Jimmy Graham, how are you doing?
Yes.
I'm good, brother. Yeah. I'm good. I'm with my people right now. If this is the end of the world, I want to be sipping Sprite. At 2222 pre-inauguration.
There you go.
So I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. I'm sorry, Able Shepherd 001. We're up to 152 on the Able Shepherd list. Over 300 plus people in the program, 152 Able Shepherds. For if you don't know what that means, it's kind of our black belt. Like when they hit a certain phase that I consider elite training on entries on taking care of one another, that's the Able Shepherd coin. And the one in my pocket right now is 001. We just awarded 152. That's a big deal. So that's why I'm in a good mood. That's why I'm doing good. All right, I wanted to kick this one off and jump right back into some meaty stuff. I appreciate the way that you handled the, I don't appreciate you coming to Castle Rock and getting greeted from my town by some dude bawling you out for not wearing a mask. However, I do like the way that you handled it. Could you walk us through that?
Yeah. So we pull in the parking lot, and we get out and start walking towards the store. And an older gentleman kind of gives me a dirty look and says, where's your respect? And I kind of looked at him and shrugged my shoulders, and I said, well, where's my respect? And he kind of huffed and puffed at me and walked off. So my wife and I went and got whatever it was we were getting. I don't think he was trolling us, but we ended up hooking back up down at the far end of the store. And he just started going off again. He's like, where's your respect? And I'm like, would you like to have a conversation about this? He's like, yeah. So I said, so you do realize that there's data all the way back to 79 showing that these masks are not designed for what they're using them for. And would you get that on the internet? I'm like, no. And he just started going off on me some more. He had no interest in hearing or having a conversation. He was getting pretty hot. And so as I kept trying to stay calm and have a conversation with him, he changed the subject. So you probably voted for Trump too then. I said, yeah, actually I did vote for Trump, but not because I like him, because I liked his policies. And he started going on again. And then my lovely bride was starting to speak up. And she like me, she doesn't believe in the mask. She has done her own research on her own. And I could see what the guy was doing, and I'm like, don't even engage anymore. He's not interested. Yeah. He's just trying to get us to chase rabbits with him, and I said, we're not doing it. And then he he brought up something else. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I answered the question, and he walked off with a big old BS, and that's it.
And stormed off.
Yeah.
I think so. This kind of segues into another section I wanted to throw at you guys. What I mentioned this in one of our Bible study groups that I lead on Monday. The other one Brett leads, and it came up in both of them on Thursday. And I call it mid-level confrontation. I'm not sure, and we just talked about this recently. If that's what it's called, but it means not losing your mind, but not backing down and walking away with your dignity. I think that men lack that. I think that I am trying to get better at that because I'm very. At one point in my life, it was easy to fly off the handle, and overreact and then regret it later, or not say your piece and then the guilt is like I should have said this kind of thing. So where is that? So I think that. When I mentioned that, it was received by some because I said this is a measure, like for me, it is a measure for me becoming a better man by doing that. The way they took it was like, you're not a man if you don't know how to do this. So I get texts afterwards like, I don't know how to do this by guys that are in their 60s. Right. Can you teach me? Something came out like, wow, there's people that they're still trying to figure out the man that they're supposed to be or born to be or called to be in their 60s. This needs to be looked at. So I started looking further into that. And I'm trying to figure out what my part is in that. But that's why I respect that. We do need to have some truth to fall back on in those conversations because it turns into crazy time. Right. Like even my wife and I talked about that. We're bouncing around on emotion. Just say something that's true. What is something that's absolutely true? Right. To my wife, I love you. She's like, I love our children. And then we not saying I don't love you, but she's like, I love our children. This is not a true statement. What was just said. There's no facts in that. Anyways, that's what we're playing around with. And I think one of the cool things that happened in that Bible study, kind of not attached to this, was that one person had got the vaccine in the medical field, but once they said that, everybody else was like, like almost like this one is among us, this kind of thing. Right. We had a discussion, said his piece, they said their piece, and we all left as friends. That needs to be defended. Like that needs to come back. We should be able to talk. I tell my kids, hear both sides, and then you make your decision. That's what adults do. They hear this, they choose for themselves what it is. But we can't hear it if it's censored. Right. So now all of a sudden you're driven, again, pull the right rein, return right. Pull the left rein, return left. There is no other option because I took it away from you. That's China. That's the thing that we can't have. It is proven to not work.
It makes it impossible to think critically.
Yeah.
You cannot engage in critical thinking if you're deprived of fact.
Mm. You bring the whole truth thing up. I've got a ton of friends that are on. I'm not a Facebook fan. I have it because I have family and whatever on it, and all my conservative friends, a lot of them, are all leaving Facebook because they're all ticked off. And I get it, the atmosphere and all that stuff with politics and COVID. I was thinking about it the other morning, and I'm like, if you choose to leave Facebook because you're mentally stressed and it's not healthy for you to be on there, and okay, fine, I get it. But even though Facebook, it's a free platform, it's Zuckerberg's or whatever his name is, it's his thing. So he can put all the regulations and all the whatever's on it he wants because it's his. I get it. It's irritating, but I get it. But if you leave, then where's the voice?
That's right.
You're no longer having a voice in an arena where discussion has to happen. I have my own family that are on the other side of the fence that when I was going through what I was going through and this COVID stuff started to happen, and I was praying and just like, what am I going to do here? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to handle this? And the biggest thing was the truth needs to be told. Everything has to be about truth right now. Doing it in love, but it has to be truth. So I'd do some research, and I happened to be dealing with doctors at the time, so I was asking questions, and I'd post some stuff. And friends that I've had for years, and family, would attack me personally because of something I posted, instead of discussing the actual post and talking about the facts that were there.
Yeah.
It's like, my response would be, if you want to talk about the post, let's talk about the post. But I'm not addressing anything that you just said until we talk about the post.
Yeah.
Other than that, have a nice day. And it's really frustrating that the maturity level is so low that you can't have that discussion. You can't disagree and still talk normal to each other and have respect for the individual. You don't have to respect their view, but at least respect them enough to have that conversation.
Yeah. I agree. You said something that really touched a nerve there about leaving Facebook. I've got people are making a mass exodus from Facebook. I get that. You had that joke. Hey, follow us on Parler. Oh wait, never mind. Amazon
Right.
Nazis did. So this is my question to you. I've got buddies, and I'll get to the question. I've got buddies that are like, send me something. Hey, here's a piece of property in Montana. A bunch of friends of mine, many, moved to Texas, right? I'm sick of the politics, moved to Texas. Another one says, hey, let's move to Montana. I sent him back a picture of my 6-year-old son holding an E-tool, an entrenching tool. It's a military shovel. Mm-hmm. Said, no, not us. We're digging in. The line's right here. And then I sent him a picture of a foxhole with a 50 cal, like, this, a big machine gun. It's like, no, we're going to hold this ground. I remember through my military career going to these amazing places, either to train or do whatever. I think it's Providence, maybe either Rhode Island or somewhere out there. Providence, it's on the water. Gorgeous. Key West, gorgeous. San Francisco, gorgeous. I would never live and hate visiting all these places because they've just folded and everybody said, can't handle the lifestyle, can't handle the politics, I'm out of here. So what's left? You forfeit these gorgeous towns. San Francisco is a beautiful, beautiful town. It's unbelievable. Seattle, all these other places. Don't care to live there. We'll never live there, ever. Whatever. Because they've been forfeited because nobody dug in and said, no, not this place. Right. Whatever. You do whatever. Now California's pouring into Colorado. That's cool because they're sick of California, but they bring their politics with them, mm-hmm. right? My point is, you're going to run out of places to run. So I would love it if Parler was this great place where a bunch of people like me sat and talked. But again, I don't want to censor that out. I want to listen to this. So is Facebook that place where you say, people say, social media this, social media that? Well, you know what else social media is a place where I can check on my nieces and nephews and hear about them and communicate with them, where I would not, would not, if it wasn't for that. And the other thing is, I share Bible verses almost daily on Facebook, and people see them and they read them, and I hear from people that, for the whole other part of my life, Navy days, high school days, and all this kind of stuff. So do you leave Facebook? I mean, these dudes are already billionaires. You know what would hurt them the most? Is for you to look at them as a man and I don't respect you. You've lost my respect because you are a predator and you are not a protector. Right. And I had this and I pulled it up from one of my notes we were talking about. It was like, do not ask the device of how to unite. Do not ask predators how to protect, and do not ask the dead how to live. Like that's you're walking around because you think they won because they're a billionaire. And I get it. Money's cool, and I would love to be a billionaire. So, who wouldn't? But if a grown man, and you guys know this, if a man looked at me that I consider a man, it was like, with disrespect, that's what needs to happen. Mm. Like, I would say, people are like, well, shame him? Yes, shame can be a good thing. Like, if you're doing evil, you should feel shame.
Oh, absolutely.
You should feel guilt because you know you're doing evil because you and your little billionaire buddies got together and you're doing something and you're a child and you don't understand the consequences of it. Again, you hated a man more than you loved this nation. Mm. And my kids will suffer for that. So that bothers me. And they need to know that.
Yeah.
So do you leave or not leave?
I'm already in Montana.
Not Colorado. Facebook, brother.
I'm not much of a Facebooker. I would say this. I use Facebook just to get a pulse on what's going on. I don't know how accurate that pulse is after seeing things, shows like Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
When everything is algorithm, social engineered, whose posts you see, frequency, content, those kinds of things. It's all engineered. And so is me logging on to Facebook once a week to check just to see what's going on, is that an accurate picture? Probably not. I hear your point loud and clear in terms of getting to connect with extended family and using that as a tool when that would not happen otherwise. And so I can absolutely appreciate that part of it. And I don't, I have had friends that have left Facebook because it was so emotionally, politically, etc., draining. And where I go mentally with that is, why are you putting so much into that it drains you?
Right.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't really care what you ate for lunch yesterday, because people are like, "Oh, this is the best bagel." I'm like, "What are you doing?" Whatever. Well, and I don't watch it. Like, I don't. I mean, if I were the what do they call it, news feed or whatever it is, and I am not a Facebook.
The thing.
The thing they do.
Yeah.
But this is what happens when guys, like I'll just pick on Parker. I'm not on Facebook. It's like we did a group movie and there was 20 dudes and we all hung out and it was amazing. Well, nobody told me. Well, dude, we put it on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. Well, you know what else you're not on? The movie. Like, you're not there. You're like, whatever. We did a thing. You invited, and you're like, well, you didn't show up at my doorstep and come pick me up. That's the kind of thing. It's like, but I invited you. Well, I don't choose to be on that. Well, you choose also to not come to the stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a very efficient tool. And it's a business tool, by the way, because the reason I even got into it was because of business, because I care less about look at what Jimmy's doing. But it is a way to say what we're doing and grow the business. So if people start leaving and their businesses suffer because the people don't know of what they're doing, that's not a good thing.
Right.
That the good businesses go under because they can't market. Like, that's what I'm saying. Now, if there was an alternative, if Parler exists right now and they were saying we're going to return to a biblical and a foundation that this, the founding fathers, all this other stuff, the Constitution, the documents that form this nation, I'd already be on it. That'd be a done deal. If it needs to happen, I will do it. I'm just saying right now, I think it's going to hurt us more than it's going to help us. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I kind of think that, let's just say Parler existed.
Yeah.
My issue with, there's nothing, I agree 100% with, we need something like Parler. We need iron sharpening iron.
That's right.
But there's a point where if it's only us on there, we're not training our intellect to be able to deal with adversity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I did a men's breakfast a couple weeks ago, and I taught on Satan and went through a bunch of scriptures, and the point I was trying to make is pastors don't, in my experience, pastors do not teach enough on Satan. And so many people, whether it's a feel-good pastor or just scripture in itself, which is awesome. But if you don't, and I'm sure in your line of work that you're done with, you guys went in having a plan, studying what the enemy was doing so that you could be successful. Yep. Any professional team studies their opponent. Well, if we don't know how Satan works, then we're going to be naive to the attacks. So Facebook, TV, music, everyone watches these movies and they get on Facebook or these other social media things and they wonder why everything's so toxic, or the video games for that matter. Those are all tools that Satan uses to pawn us against each other. So for me, I would be on board with a Parler. Matter of fact, I joined Parler before it went down, but I'm still not willing to give up my Facebook account because I know there's a whole world out there that believes all the crap that they're being told. So anytime I can post something that I've researched and I know it's factual, if one person reads it and it changes their mind, or at least gets them to think, or to your note about posting scripture, God promises that his word doesn't go void. So if that person reads it, it might not do anything right then and there, but who knows? A month, a year, something happens and changes. I don't think and I'm not convicted to leave that arena yet. I still think there's somebody that can benefit from hearing the truth, seeing the truth.
And that's like, I just pulled up my Facebook because like, your people will volunteer on your day of battle. Psalm 110:3. That's on there. Somebody saw that. Somebody read that. They liked it. They did all that kind of stuff. My page has me and 25 dudes praying at a range before we started day training. That's on there. People get to see that. So that's the kind of thing that I'm saying. It's like, for right now, if I am convicted to leave that, and I think it's a big void, it's such an opportunity because we can't have a monopoly.
Right.
There needs to be competition. There needs to be another option. And if it shows up and it's, if I need to help it, like I've heard of people doing this, if you're serious, get going because the world needs it and I will support it. But like, again, right now, to take that off and make sure that they don't do it, I don't think that would be a good plan. That might be the other side's plan to get me off of there. Why? Because we're leading this industry.
Right.
So to pull it off of there, now nobody sees it. They're like, sweet. They're not stupid. They're not ethical, but they're not stupid.
Right.
So, but to think they're winning, that's why I would say, no, that's not happening either. To think this surprised God and God is losing now, it's not the way he works.
Right.
So, and you get it. This is, the scriptures are filled with it. They can laugh all the way to the bank, whether they're the billionaires, whether they're the politicians or whatever. They're not going to win. Like this is thing. It's just anytime we get face adversity, we get stronger. So I believe that this nation will figure out a way around this. We'll come back twice as strong. Whether it's end times, we don't have to worry about it. But that's one of what I call a Christian cop out. Hey, Jesus coming back. I'm good. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But you're supposed to. I tell people, not your job to save the world. It's already been done. Your job's to try. So it's like, get after it, get doing something, but know that he's already done that work. Parlor. You and your Parlor.
See what that started?
Like us on Parlor.
Like us on Parlor.
Dang it. Come on, Parlor. Stuff going on. We need you. All right. How'd you guys hear about Able Shepherd? Because I believe it was the same way. Is that correct?
I believe so.
I believe so.
I think it's your turn to go first.
My turn to go first?
Yeah, that way I can copy your answer and sound better.
Fair enough. I had signed up for a defensive pistol class in Missoula, Montana. And
don't you live in Missoula?
Yes.
I don't think it counts as much then. You didn't have to travel.
Well, I mean,
left the house.
That's a valid point.
So waved at him.
Yeah. It's like, okay. My coffee was still hot by the time I got to the range. It's not that far. And it was a hosted event. So how I found out even about that defensive handgun course was through a local instructor. And he had this invited guest, guy by the name of Mike Seeklander, come in to do this. It was ultimately 3 days of coursework at the range, and I didn't know who Seeklander even was. I just know the guy that I trusted with instruction prior to that date with both myself and my wife. I trusted that guy, so he's bringing somebody else in, says, you need to come and hang out with us. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Okay, I'll come hang out. And I did. I absolutely got a lot out of it. That training also was in that, I'm sure the audience is very familiar. It's an outdoor range, and outdoor ranges, at least in Missoula, there's a couple of them, just have a whole lot of rules attached to them, and I'm sure that's insurance or whatever else. There's a lot of rules. And I'm at the range with my wife because I want to create a skill set that will allow us to protect ourselves And there's severe limitations with those really traditional approaches to defensive handgun.
Right.
But I really got a lot out of how Seeklander was working with us. And then I found out he had a podcast. And so I started following the podcast. And it might have been a month later, 2 months later, on the podcast, he has Jimmy Graham and the Able Shepherd program. And I couldn't get enough of that podcast. And I...
look at you now.
Look at me now.
On the podcast.
It's all I could do. It's all I could do.
Podcast. All grown up.
Yeah. To reach out and talk to you. And I needed to really find out. Initially, it was the approach, because I was hearing some significantly different approaches to training on that podcast. So I wanted to learn more about the approach, and both in the podcast and in our live conversations, we had the opportunity to talk about shared faith. And so if I'm going to drive 1,000 miles and engage in this stuff and ask my wife to do that, I need to make sure I know what kind of environment I'm stepping into. And so that's how I found you.
Yours was a little different. Wasn't you even listening to it?
No, I wasn't. And I was actually shocked that my wife was listening to it.
First off, I want to give Mike props and a shout out. American Warrior Society, is
Yes,
that right?
American
Warrior
Warrior
Society. Mike and I were both on, he was part of the Best Defense,
Correct.
the Outdoor Channel. I've been on the Outdoor Channel about 4 times. Was a guest on that show a couple times with Michael Bain and Janich, Michael Janich, and Mike Seeklander. So came on active shooter. One was a terrorist threat, and I was a talking head advisor, whatever, SME, subject matter expert, and again on active shooters in schools. So that's how I met him, and he invited me on this podcast.
Janix actually isn't that far from here.
That's right. Yep.
An hour or so, I think. Yeah, no, my pastor, he was retired Fed. My heart's always been protecting, security, loved, wanted to join the military but couldn't. So my pastor was actually trained by Mike Seeklander when Mike was, I can't remember his whole history there, but I'm pretty sure he trained the feds in shooting and stuff. So once he told me that, I hounded Mike to death. I called him to get private lessons. And finally he caved and said, "Yep, you've hounded me enough. You must be serious. Come on out." So I went out and we did a weekend together. We had to do an indoor range because that was his transition from USCCA. Yeah, USC, SSA, or whatever you just said.
ISSIPPI.
Right, that. And
LMLP.
he changed my world when it came to guns. I mean, I was actually shooting left-handed with my handgun, and he's like, "Dude, what are you doing? Let's try right-handed and see how that works." And just from there, everything he did with me, changing stuff up. So then I joined the American Warrior Society and went back out for some more training and stuff. And they, like you just said, they started a podcast. I hadn't probably listened to maybe 1 or 2 at the time. And my wife, I come home, my wife goes, "Hon, you got to listen to this." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "You got to listen to this podcast." And she said that. I'm floored that she even listened to it to begin with.
That's pretty awesome.
Right. And
I mean, you're just choking down some American War Society. What are you doing in there?
right.
Are you in?
You're baking a bunt cake, and she's in there getting after it. She's cleaning guns and sharpening up all the steak knives, and
He's borrowing sugar.
Right. We have this English bulldog, or had this English bulldog, and every time Mike Sinklander's voice would come on, he would go into complete fear because the dog knew that my timer, because I'd put on my timer because he started those dry fire drill things. So the dog would go nuts. So I was shocked that she would listen to it because she knew how the dog would react, on top of the fact that it was gun stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll listen to it. And I'm like, I got to go. Yeah. And I was on the phone. I don't know if it was that day or the next day. I didn't get the pleasure like you did to get to talk to him directly. I dealt with Neil, which Neil is awesome. And I think I talked to Neil, 3 or 4 times before we finally got all the logistics figured out and came out and trained with you for that week. And just Mike Sieklander changed my whole world when it came from the level that I was at.
Absolutely.
And not that I'm anything spectacular now, but coming here, Jimmy took it to a whole nother level. Just the whole, the tactical part of it, the accuracy. I shouldn't say that. Yes, the accuracy part, but also Mike had a huge factor in that too. Mm-hmm. But it was just, it's 2 different styles. Yeah. And it's just unbelievable to go through that and experience it, because I've had other trainers as well. Yeah. And by far, you and Mike it's 2 different things. So I'm not trying to take away anything from Mike.
Not at all.
Sure, no, I appreciate it.
So
yeah, not at all. Because I had an amazing experience training with him. And mentally, I was committed to engaging more with him. If that meant flying to Oklahoma or wherever he happened to be, I was ready to do that. Right. It just so happened that scheduling time with Abel Shepherd and Jimmy happened first. And instantly the difference is that I could put together that was significantly different than Sieklander, was this dynamic 360-degree environment where you're engaging in entries, which is exactly what I was looking for a very long time. We live kind of out in the country, and the response is up to me. The responsibility is up to me. Right. And to try to find training.
Wait. You're telling me.
Let me tighten this. Let me tighten this up.
All right.
And so
it's your job.
You're telling me it's your job.
Let me get this straight.
Take care of your family.
Somebody get some crayons. I need a picture. And so it was because of this environment, very distinct training environment with an amazing community. Amen. On a set of values that I believe in. And that was 3 years ago, I think. I don't know. My memory isn't so good.
It'd be about 2.
2?
Yep.
2, 3.
You're 86er, I'm 75er.
Yeah.
So I was here 2 years ago.
Were you?
Almost to the day.
Oh, wow. Happy anniversary.
Thanks. Did you get me anything?
Finish the rest of the Sprite.
Yeah, but that's when you got your coin. It took time to get there, or did you get it all in 1 week?
There's a story behind it. Pretty close. Pretty close.
I remember that call from the airport. That was funny. We say that, I say this, and it's very applicable right now, and you guys have already touched on this, maybe in the previous podcast. We say, when we go to train a active shooter type situation to a business or a school or whatever, they say, where do you start? I say, you start with your people. You always start with your people. Not by the technology, not do the door and all that stuff. If your people don't know what to do, it's broken already. And obviously very applicable right now is that your training or knowledge cannot be taken away from you. And in an area, like in this time right now, starting tomorrow, is certain things that they're going to go after and potentially try to take things away. This weekend, as a special event, we did Intro to Defensive Driving.
Boom.
Been driving a car for a long, long time, but you may potentially, some people there, never considering that it could be a weapon. Never considering, to defend your life could be a weapon. It could be that base station. It could be a thing that if you mess it up and not knowing basic skills, it could cost you dearly. This is we've been, I think, protected and will continue to be protected because we've always focused on, taking care of one another. So everything we do is protective in nature. And I think that people that have used language, that's harsh or rash or kill them all or do whatever, there's going to be some problems there. But hopefully, we've talked about this. They come out and what we do is actually, if that ever is made illegal or whatever, it's like I can't imagine, but it's not off the table, that taking care of your family and doing it well would become something that would be restricted. So we keep praying for that. Okay, going to shift gears because we're running up on our time.
Okay.
Challenge is coming. What can listeners do right now to make things better, in your opinion? Like, it's good to talk about stuff. My thing that I say quite often, because I've been to many, many groups, many studies, active shooter, Bible, whatever you call it, and there's a lot of Panera bread. And everybody sits around and talks and eats Panera bread. And I say the answer is not more Panera bread. What do we do between the meetings? Like the action steps that somebody could take right now to actually make a difference.
First and foremost, I would say, if you don't know Christ, find somebody who does, and be willing to have that conversation. Because once you learn who Jesus is and what he did for you, and you start to get into the Bible, all of this starts to make sense. And then from there, once you've built that foundation, from there, God will lead to where you need to go next, whether it's learn how to defend your family or missions or whatever. But you need that truth, because once you have that truth, everything else is exposed.
Amen. Absolutely agree with that. Because it's funny when people say, I'm going to go buy a bunch of bullets, I'm going to go buy a bunch of beans, and I'm going to go buy a bunch of that. Like, and then what? And then you survive years longer than everybody else, and then I can go to hell. I don't get it. It's like, okay, master of delaying the inevitable. And it became an adventure for me. Like, once I understood, like, I don't know how I made it to 30-something, not understanding the whole story. I just, for some reason, it was felt bored Jesus. Put the little felt things up, and David, Goliath, and you're like, cool story, whatever, lunchtime or what. Like, I never understood that I'm in that story. And once I did, everything changed. Everything.
You say that, and the scary thing is when you look at, I can't quote it word by word, but when you look at Matthew 7:21 through 23 or 4, Jesus says, "Get away from me, I never knew you." He's not talking to the unsaved, he's talking to the church. He's talking to the people who think they are saved, that go to church, whether it's every Sunday or just on a holiday.
Checking the boxes.
It's just checking the boxes,
Yep.
and that is scary.
Yeah.
When you go to your home church, and you look at people who, again, it's not my place to judge that. God's going to take care of that. But are we, the ones who know that you're saved, truly know that you're saved, are we doing our part? Are we making sure the people that are walking through that door understand that verse? Because I think it's going to be shock and awe when that happens.
I used to be, I totally get that. And this came up in our Bible study because guys asked that, like, what's the percentage? Steve Klein asked that. What's the percentage, I wonder, of people like, am I really saved? I know I said this stuff. Am I really saved? I had been there for years. Not anymore. Not even close.
Right.
I'm like the experiences, the this, the that. I could tell 100 stories right now because, you will call me Lord, Lord, and I will say I never knew you. That's scary stuff if you don't know what you're talking about.
Amen.
Once you do, you're like, I see that, and it is. It's it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That people check box, I did the thing, I do whatever, and then you go out, lie, cheat, and steal, and litter.
And
not
litter.
Cool. Not cool. Hustling. What can people do right now?
After that, that's a broad spectrum. It's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Because it can go many different ways. And when I think what can people do right now, I tend to start with myself and my family, and what can we do to put ourselves in a position of strength so that we can support people on their path to salvation. And so if I can prolong however long I'm on this planet, and help people with their journey, but I have to come from a position of strength to do that. I can't be in a position of weakness.
Right.
So how do you answer the question, what does a position of strength mean? And you stated it, which is the same reason I got in the van to come down here. And that is that strength comes from, I think, and I'm talking about once you get that foundational spiritual strength, because it just doesn't matter after that. Absolutely doesn't matter.
Right.
Then there's all of these other areas of strength, economic strength, but in this case, we're talking about the strength to defend. And so I'm doing everything I can to prepare my house to defend my family, defend my community, and wherever on the front lines I can be placed. And so there's those pieces of answering what can we do. Then there's once I extend past myself and my family, what can I do to engage this system? And we have systems that are absolutely failing miserably. Political systems, education systems. How are we developing leaders that are going to take the reins on this chaos? And the strength of character of an individual to navigate all of the corrupt pieces of the political system is a very special individual. And so how do we engage in that? I don't know if I have any. I know I don't have answers to that. I know and so I know when I don't have the answers, it's what do I do to come up with the right questions to ask, to be able to identify first what the problems are, what are these, where does the corruption exist in those systems, and what does excellence look like in those systems, and then how do we nurture an environment that builds the leader that has the character to navigate that with excellence? And so that's the immediate local family individual, but then it's also, so you're coming from a position of strength within your household, but then how do you structure those systems to create a position of strength? And that's a pretty tall order in this specific day and age.
Agreed. The thing you reminded me of is something I've said in the last podcast, or time I was on Facebook, whatever, it was the live thing.
The time you were on Parler?
The time I was on Parler. Come on, Parler. Get your stuff together. Get a freaking Amazon. if everything's broken, the top's broken, government's broken, schools are broken, blah, blah, blah. I said the other day something that's really resonated and people, it just was well received, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. And I said, go do something good today and don't ask permission. You know what's good. Go do something and start with the place between your feet, and then do that and make that habitual. Because I believe that if we're looking for the broken system to be fixed, it's an undoable deed, right? It's not going to happen if you go there. So what's the answer? You start locally. You do something you display excellence to a degree that it gets the attention of the politicians. They say, this is getting popular and it's growing. Crap, now I got to do my job. I need to make more of these, whatever. And then it goes from there, from a small town, maybe it's just hypothetically called Castle Rock, Colorado. Then it goes to Denver. Then it goes to Colorado. Then they go, what the hell is going on in Colorado? Because the lights are going down and there's a light shining over that hill towards Denver, and I can't not see that. And people are flocking to that, and I got to look like I'm doing my job. That's, I think, the answer. That's the way it used to be. But now people with these ridiculous questions asking permission to do things that are right. It is unbelievable. I had a conversation before we got on here, and it said something like, well, we just got to do what's best for the school. No, you got to do what's best for the business, but you're not asking what's best for the kids. And I get it, but I don't like it. So I'm not looking to make enemies, but I'm saying we're not asking that anymore. It's like, I don't know what if that gets, I get all the liability, I get all of that stuff, but we're so scared to do anything right, we do nothing. And then bitch about things being wrong.
And who are you going to ask permission to? Because it's all upside down.
Right, because it's the corrupt so-and-so, and you're going to go ask them what you should do. What do you think they're going to have some kind of amazing, just earth-shattering, just, God-based answer? That's like the person that you were complaining about. Right. Amen to that. Okay. So that's what I think people can do right now. If they don't know and they need a place to start, try Jack Hibbs, try Calvary Chapel Chino Hills, try liveaction.org, try Alternatives Pregnancy Centers. That's where I'm going to start with all of the above. And like I said, right now, pro-life is going to be the thing I'm going to attack. Haven't figured out all those pieces yet, but I've got some great ideas. Through the Stand in the Gap initiative, that's where things are growing, because we ask them to search their hearts and to pray and say, what is the thing? It doesn't have to be Jimmy's thing. What's your thing? And then get behind it. And maybe you're not a leader. Maybe you don't want to talk. Get behind somebody and give them fuel. Get behind them, support them financially, get emotionally, all the above, and then show up. But doing nothing, we're done with that.
I just want to add to doing something good without asking. If the person isn't bold to be out in public and doing whatever that is.
Yep.
Prayer.
Absolutely.
Just pray for your country, pray for your family, pray for whatever, but pray.
Yeah.
Because of the power behind that. Pray for boldness on top of that.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. We absolutely, this is too big, cannot do this, period. But God can. So we can pray about it. But when he says go, go.
Right.
I absolutely believe that. Any parting thoughts, gentlemen? What is it? You got something?
It's a wheel. It's like the Price is Right wheel that spins around, and I have that many categories of parting thoughts, and I have to parse out one of them.
Like if I got to pick one, it's parlor.
If I got to pick one, I think you know where I stand. I don't know. I don't know what the parting thing is. I think what I observe, what I hear, it's our job to love one another. It's that easy. Love one another. And I think we can do a better job of that. And I think it's also connected to that comment you made about asking permission. We don't have to ask permission to love one another.
Right.
And that's the ground that's between our feet.
Amen.
That's my parting thought.
That's a good parting thought. You know that take care of one another came from John. Love one another. And I don't think we should have to take along that shameless plug. we should not ever have to ask permission to take care of one another and everything that means. Because whose responsibility is it?
Jason's.
That's a pretty good guess.
Any parting thoughts, my brother?
Not really. I mean, this is just the whole conversation, and I think Jason nailed it on the head, is especially Christians. We need, when God gives us the command to love our neighbor as ourselves, we need to do a better job of that. We need to be leading the way, and we're not.
Yeah.
And it's I won't lie, there's been times where my flesh gets control and I'm ticked off, but I got to pray for my enemies, and I got to love my enemies and love my neighbor, and we just got to do better. I don't think the Christian community is representing God the way we should be representing. So.
Amen. 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 And I believe it amazes me now in the position I'm in right now how, and it's not just me, it's everybody, people are watching you. They might not admit it. You might not see it, but they are. They're trying to figure out the man or woman they're trying to be. They're watching you every single day. Are you portraying? And let me finish with this, because you guys said this earlier, and I said I know what that is. What's the draw? Why are you here 2 years later in the worst time in our life, and you're sitting right here at this table? And this is, I truly believe this with all my heart. And I've told you this. We have the family table that's way bigger than this table at the other building. People would come in, they'd be drawn to it, and they wouldn't want to leave. Had to kick them out at midnight. Classes were over at 8. They're still hanging out, whatever. It is those Christ-like qualities that I try to reflect. And I'm not saying that I've got Christ-like qualities. I'm just saying there's certain things that I believe there is a Christ in us. If we portray that, it is addictive. Like when you're around somebody and you're just like, I want to be around this person. I'm a better person when I'm around this person. I'm following Christ to my utmost. People come in, they feel that, and they go, what is this thing? Mm-hmm. Of course it's guns and it's all this other stuff, but it's not me doing it. It's like I'm just doing Jimmy, and I'm just trying to, change and do this a better way. And people goes, can I sit here for a minute? Mm-hmm. And then can I sit here for a minute? And then there's 10, and then there's 20, and then there's 50, and then there's 300. Mm-hmm. And people, you've seen it, you felt it, this magnetic thing. And somebody one time said, hey, how's your self-defense ministry going? And I go, what did you say? Because it sounded weird to hear it said that way. But I absolutely believe, because I've seen a community born, and that's not what I set out to do, but it's the best part of it. So I believe it. We'll keep doing it, until I'm called to do something else. But right now, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, in this position right now for 2021. Bring it on.
Amen.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Going to wrap this episode up, and BK, last thoughts? Anything? He's like, don't put me on the spot like that, man. I'm over here trying to make cameras go. All right, so give us a 5-star rating, please. Like us on Facebook, share with all your friends, write a review. That's how those evil algorithms get out there and develop our stuff and get out to more people. We appreciate it. We feel like we're being called to do something bigger than ourselves. That's exactly what we're going to do. So do something good today, and don't ask permission. Let that become habit and shine so bright in your community that people can't help but see it. So love you guys. Until we see you again, God bless, and take care of one another.